Hey everyone, we're live. Welcome. And yeah, that was a heck of a game in a way. I it went not the way I thought it was going to go at all. I predicted that the Buccaneers would win. I told everybody take the Bucs and the points because I believe the Bucs were the underdogs to the visiting Dallas Cowboys. But I was caught with the Brady magic, as I want to do at points, like most of the people, I think, and could not see a world where Tom Brady lost the game. I've been there a bunch of times. I learned a long time ago you never bet against
A
Tom Brady,
world
right?
where Tom Brady lost.
You never bet against Tom Brady. You never bet against Tom Brady. How many times have I heard that? Hey, everybody, come on in and share your views on this. You never bet against Tom Brady. And, well, this time was that time where it would have been okay to bet against Tom Brady, right? Um, Look what happened, which leads me to this question. Do you, as a Raider fan, want Tom Brady in Las Vegas? And if so, why? Because I'm not convinced that Brady alone is the answer. I think Brady had his best year when he was hungriest to prove himself, and he matched on with an organization, the Buccaneers, that had everything they needed except the right approach for their quarterback. They had the right quarterback in Jameis Winston, but they were caught in what I call strong arm black quarterback thinking disease. That is, hey, I've got to have him throw deep all the time as opposed to short ball control passes with a powerful running game, right? That's actually a disease in the NFL. The idea that, if you have a strong arm black quarterback, you can't possibly have him in a ball control passing offense. When really that's the first thing you should have him in, you know? Um, but I digress. Fortunately for the Buccaneers and getting Tom Brady, they didn't have that mentality. They had it with Winston, and yet Arians was convinced that Tom Brady can run his offense, being Arians, and Brady came in and said, I can't run this because it's not based on timing. And so I want to install some of my plays. And so gradually through the 2020 season, we saw, well, what we saw. We saw the transformation of the Buccaneers from a team that was obsessed with throwing deep to a team that quite literally adopted ball control passing because of its quarterback, which generally doesn't happen today. Be cool if it happened more often, but it generally doesn't. And I remember the first game that Tom Brady played. So Monday night, Superdome, preseason, I believe it was, and he threw two interceptions. One was a pick six, and suddenly this meme went around on Twitter of Jameis Winston at a clipboard looking up like this, kind of like, ah, so you realize it's not me after all, huh? Right? It was the system. So fast forward to now, we've got a situation where Tom, the magic pixie dust is not where it used to be. Okay. It's and I don't know if part of that is because the offense wasn't as appropriately adjustable as he wanted it to be, or maybe his passes are just a little off. Like he had Mike Evans wide open. And okay, you could say the pass hit Evans on the fingertips, and so Evans should have caught it. But I could say that Tom looked like he was aiming the pass and he overthrew, almost overcompensating to get it there rather than that natural throw of the pass that didn't call for him canning his head like this to compensate for some loss in strength. You know, when you know your body can get it there, you just throw it. That was Tom Brady. Okay. And I'm not saying he can't do it at all. He did it in the game that they won against the Panthers to get to where they were today. That was an incredible game. And while we're talking about incredible games, Dak Prescott. 25 of 33, 301 yards, 4 touchdowns. Not bad. Not bad. And he commanded a total of 5 when you consider the runs too. So Dak Prescott had himself a nice all-pro evening. It's as if they went out and said, we're going to make a passing game that takes advantage of every weakness the Bucs defense has, which basically means, hey, look, spread out and shoot, right? And that's what they did. But they mixed in runs too that were very effective, and play action that was really effective, timely. It was the best game plan I've seen out of Kellen Moore, the Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator. All right. So when you take that plus the fact that the Bucs defense looked like it forgot how to blitz, it was playing that front that I hate, the one where the defensive ends stand up as opposed to the classic 4 down lineman, where you get the leverage, you get in, you brush the passer quickly, and then you get your hands up, you start batting the bat balls, right? All that. Fine. Bottom line is, what we saw is a defense that couldn't stop the Cowboys, and we saw the Cowboys defense seem to be quite literally in Byron Leftwich's head. He knew what plays, they knew what plays he was going to call. Tried to stop the flat pass attack that the Buccaneers had fashioned for themselves over the past 2 years, and did. And didn't the game plan for the Buccaneers leave them with options that would involve seam passes down the middle or zig routes? You go here and you come back in, right? Or Texas routes, all right? There was a lot of football that Byron Leftwich game plan quite literally left on the shelf that could have been used to attack the Cowboys defense. Didn't happen, okay? And I didn't one time see Byron Leftwich sitting next to Tom Brady. I saw the quarterbacks. It just felt like something was wrong the entire time between the two of them. And I don't know if Tom had said something. I remember Tom saying, reportedly, Tom Brady said something critical of Byron Leftwich, and it was a general comment about the offensive game plan that wound up in a media outlet. And I thought, wow. So something was wrong. It feels like something was off, and it feels like Tom is out of there. Something is off. And it's a kind of a feast or famine thing. When things are going well, my sense, I don't know Tom Brady, is that when things are going really, really well and you're working with him, you're his best friend, right? But when they're not, you're not. And so maybe because of that, he thinks his next stop should be with the Raiders, to be reunited with Josh McDaniel. I mean, for nothing else, that seems like a logical pairing. One of those, if you can do it, why not? I will say this, though. Derek Carr was treated like crap. And I don't see anybody writing anything here, so I'm assuming I don't have Raider fans. If one of you is Zinny62, please type something, right? Don't just look at it. Eric or Vinny or whatever, who happens to be up at this time. But bottom line is, I think Tom is headed to the Raiders. I would be surprised if he said no. It just seems like the missing piece. Although I think the Raiders' real problem is defense. Do I think Tom is going to buy them a championship? Could. You know, the idea of Tom Brady on the Raiders is, with concerning the tuck rule and everything else, to an old Raider guy like me, it just seems like a wild proposition. It just does. But Mark Davis is so intent on winning, but he seems like he thinks the best way to win is quite literally bend the cultural curve, right? Make the statement that, hey, the Raiders had their way, but maybe the Raider way isn't working. It hasn't produced what Mark wants in terms of wins. And so now he thinks the Patriots way is better. But to me, the Patriots way was always the Bill Belichick way and the Tom Brady way. In other words, you can take Brady and Belichick and separate them and expect some success one place or the other. But the best way to expect success is if they're both back together, which could happen too. Tom could say, he could say, I want to give it one last go. One more try with the old team. He could say that because he would be going back to familiar territory, familiar people. He'd be going back home. He'll be going back home. All right. John Akala says, I prefer the Raiders get Garoppolo. Why is that, John? Hey, John, how you doing? Why is that? Why is that? And I'm not opposed to that either. I'm just asking a question. I think the Raiders really need to work on their defense. And I think they need to work on simplifying it and tossing out a couple of alignments, specifically that alignment that leaves a big hole in the middle when they try to place their defensive tackles wider than the guards and then overload one side or the other. They were starting off with a great, just basic gap 4-man approach. And then they got away from it, seeming that the answer defensively was some sort of exotic, what I call exotic formation. I call a defensive formation exotic when it makes no sense whatsoever. And for the first time, the Raiders are playing defensive fronts like that. Okay. Didn't square with me. Gus Bradley, for as much initial concern as I had about bringing him on, was and is an excellent defensive coordinator. I'm happy to be wrong about him. I wanted someone African-American to get the chance there. But the way the country is going, you get a mix of people working on football staffs, black, white, Latino, now increasingly Asian, okay? So I think we're headed in the right place enough for me to say, hey, if a good guy is a good guy, get the good guy. But if you see a person and the good guy, the best guy is black, you hire him immediately. All right? John says, Brady looked terrible tonight, and I'm not sure Raiders' offensive line will hold up and protect Brady. I think that if Tom came to the Raiders with Josh McDaniel, he would be in an offense that he knew so well, he would know what adjustments to call, and he would be a second coach on the field along with Josh McDaniel. He would be, a third coach. You would have Josh McDaniel, offensive coordinator, Lombardi there, and then Brady. And I think between the three of them, they could create one of the faster adjusting offenses in the NFL. I really believe that, to where they would get the right blocks at the right time, and they would have better offensive performance and better efficient passing more often than not. Okay. That possibility is out there. I think with the Bucs, you had an offensive coordinator kitchen, because a lot of people talk about Byron Leftwich, but sitting right behind him is the legendary Tom Moore. And if you don't know who Tom Moore is, I introduce you to Manning Payton, the legendary, quotes, quarterback who had as his offensive coordinator the same Tom Moore during the Tony Dungy years. That guy was sitting on the sidelines. He was there when Winston was there. And I thought that Arians was going to install something like the Colts offense with that unique zone play action they were running with Peyton, right? But we never saw it for reasons that still boggle my mind. Never saw it. But Tom Moore is still there. And I know I'd love to know what specifically Tom was contributing to the offense. And I think it had to do more with what he's seen over the years, what he knows conceptually will work and will not work. And I mean, Tom Moore has seen a lot of football, developed a lot of legendary offenses that record-setting quarterbacks and Super Bowl winning quarterbacks like Peyton Manning operated, right? And so he was there for Tom Brady. He was there for Jameis Winston. He was there tonight. So I think, okay, so I say that because Tom Moore, then I'd be Clyde Christensen. There's a lot of brain power in the room, and then Tom Brady himself. And so I'm wondering what gets lost on the floor. If I had to describe the offense as the cutting room floor, right, like a film, what was left on the cutting room floor and why? And how easy was it, or how hard was it to produce a game plan that was truly designed to take advantage of this or that, as opposed to one that was so complicated and so all over the place that it missed basic concepts and basic approaches. Just saying. All right. John asks, he says, what do you think Raiders backup option would be if Brady retires or decides to go somewhere else besides the Raiders? I think the backup option should be to really just keep working on the offense. I'm not a fan of Josh McDaniel as the head coach. And I think, first of all, they got to fix the defense. All right. Right now, the Raiders' real problem is their defense. You know the old saying, the best offense is a great defense? Well, that's the Raiders' problem. Because I don't care how good that offense becomes, as long as that defense acts like a sieve at the wrong time, which happens a lot, we're never going to get the kind of organization that we want to see in Las Vegas. All right. And I think Mark has to decide also, if he's going to stay in Las Vegas, he has to have a new type of marketing approach that assures that the stadium is all black. Because otherwise, he really is going to beat a path back to Oakland. So he's going to figure out some kind of way to get back to Oakland. Even if it happens to be playing in Niners Stadium and sharing it with them, which was the original idea way back in 2008. But Mark said no because he didn't want to play in a stadium with red seats. Fine. All right. But look, Las Vegas by its structure is such that you're going to get people who are more fans of the other team than the Raiders themselves. And the only way to change that is quite literally to import your fans to have like a Raider town, right? Where you next to the stadium like has 2,000 hotel rooms and 5,000 apartment units, something like that. So you got 7,000 people on top of the Raider fans who are built in, literally living, dwelling Raider fans in the team colors, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, imagine that you have your own place, right? But your place that you're in is actually owned by the silver and black, right? Owned by the Raiders. And you don't have to worry about decorating your place because it's in Raider colors, right? I mean, something to think about. It sounds weird, yeah, but look at the situation, all right? It would be great to have a core group of 8,000 to 10,000 fans you could count on because they're living next to the stadium or near the stadium, right? on top of another core group of 10 to 20,000 fans. So you got 30,000 right there. All right. So that lessens the chance. You're going to have people from the other side, of course, but it lessens the chance that they're going to get first dibs on tickets as opposed to your people. All right. Because the idea is that anybody that's living by there next to their Raider themed, in this Raider town that I'm thinking about, would get tickets first at a cut rate because they live there. All right. And the rule is, hey, look, you have to wear black at every game or you lose your tickets. That's the rule. Okay. I mean, obviously, I'm coming up with all of this as I talk with you, but that's what Mark Davis is going to have to do, something like that to overcome the current problem. Because even if the Raiders start on a winning tear, it's not going to change the stadium overnight to where it's all black like it was in Oakland. That's not happening because of the way Las Vegas is. Las Vegas is a tourist town because of in its history and location and industry is such that that's not going to change. All right. John says, do they have an out clause in Las Vegas? There is a possibility regarding the non-relocation agreement that I have to say right now, no. They did sign the non-relocation agreement, but Nevada, and I have to double check and see if this is still the case, came this close to imposing a new tax on sports organizations that, had it been voted into law, would have invalidated the non-relocation agreement. If there is a single tax on sports organizations or athletes that's new, then the non-relocation agreement is invalidated. I'll check on that. Of course, that doesn't stop Mark to deciding, the heck with the agreement, the heck with the contract, I'm moving anyway because this isn't right for me. That's the Raider way. Okay? That's the Raider way. All right? Because if we expect Mark to follow rules like that, then we've forgotten who he came from. All right? Al. Okay? Al. The only question for Mark is more question for Oakland. Is Oakland intellectually ready to take on the job of bringing the Raiders back? And right now, the answer is no. Oakland doesn't have the expertise, the desire, the interest. The money is there, but you can find the money if you know the law. If you desire to make it happen, then you'll figure out how to do it through the law and do it. But if you don't desire to make it happen, guess what? It doesn't matter what's written there. It's not happening. I'm saying that because if Oakland wanted to solve its homeless problem, it would have used AB 464 Mullen or SB 293 Skinner or any of the enhanced infrastructure financing district legislation types that are on the books in California law and activated them through different programs. Oakland has done bupkis, but Oakland will consistently have these political people who call themselves progressive, right? And they do these, I call them signifying things to say that they're progressive, okay? But at the end of the day, they don't do anything to solve the problem. Let me give you an example I'm talking about regarding signifying. You've got, just on MLK Day, Oakland District 2 Councilmember Nikki Fortunato Bass celebrating Martin Luther King, but then writing on her Instagram that King was anti-capitalist. I never knew a Martin Luther King is anti-capitalist. All right? Dr. King was never anti-capitalist. Where that came from, I don't know. That Dr. King was socialist? Well, maybe someone with the FBI thought that. But Dr. King didn't go around espousing hatred for the American economic system. All right, but she wrote that. And this is the same person talking about Nikki Fortunato Bass, who, when she ran for re-election, had even though she's talking about African American economic empowerment, and then you're dropping the popular progressive word equity now, all that, all the buzzwords, okay? When you look at her campaign commercial last year, she had no black folks in it. It featured a scene of her riding her bike with all young white people. Score one for diversity, score one for equity, score one for Nikki Fortunato Best being for all of that, right? No. But then on MLK Day, she wants to make sure that her bona fides are solid. And so she starts squawking about it. You see what I'm getting at? These are the kind of people we have in power now. They are about themselves. They're not about actually improving Oakland's condition. All right. So John says, Oakland is still paying for the stadium renovation when the Raiders moved back to in 95, right? Pretty much, but almost done. He says, that's probably why they don't want to invest any more money on sports teams. Well, John, I think I don't mean to be insulting simplistic, but it also underscores the overarching problem, not understanding how to activate financing so that, for example, rather than the city holding it back, and this is an example of Howard Terminal. You had people saying in Oakland, well, the city can't afford it. What? Afford what? Well, they can't afford to pay the athletics needs. And that wasn't the idea. The idea is that tax increment financing would produce 1.6 billion. Take half of that, beyond that 800 million, use that for the athletics infrastructure. All right. Okay. And that's at a 4% rate of growth per annum. It's realistic to expect double that from this 55-acre plot. 55 acres. But see, the way people talk, it was as if the whole of Oakland was being used, all the property was being used to help the A's, rather than a 55-acre parcel that was being developed. Okay. And so rather than the mayor insisting on a kind of approach that says that the city will not let bonds, which actually is called for in SB 293 Skinner. It says the Public Financing Authority lets the bonds and not the city. No. But what does Libby do? We're going to say, hey, we're going to do these limited obligation bonds. Well, they call for the city to identify a source. The city. It says nothing about the Public Financing Authority. What happens in California parlance is we get consultants who know the basic way. Give me the county's general fund to use as a backstop. Give me the cities, right? And we don't insist on innovative legislation. Politically, it doesn't happen. It happens in Las Vegas. They're willing to take the risk. That's how Sheldon Adelson was able to get a $650 million bond issue out of the Nevada legislature through County. And in the Oakland parlance, you know what they would say? Well, if we use tax increment financing, it's just, we have to wait for the stream to grow and all that stuff. And so they say, well, we can't bond it all at once, which is BS. I've heard people say that. Politicians who don't know. And you can bond it all at once. You have to size it the right way. Okay. Like say to your tax agents, hey, can we use all that base year money so that we can take our revenue from $800,000, assuming $2 billion base year assessed value, assuming 4% rate of growth per annum, 45 years. Can we take your base year? It's 55 acres. You're going to get it back in sales tax. You're going to get it back in other ways. You're going to get it back in offsite, not just offsite infrastructure improvements, but community improvements through the ability to use tax increment financing wherever you designate special projects throughout Oakland. That's in the law. All right. My point is they had all that stuff there. Okay. Wow. So anyway, there is a way to do it where Oakland doesn't have to quote invest any money unquote. The PSLs were a mistake, but we all wanted the Raiders back. So Ezra, rest in peace, God rest his soul, really wanted the Raiders back to a point where he was willing to take the scenario that he knew wasn't going to work, put it in his back pocket, and say, I don't want anybody to see this spreadsheet. I know I was there. Okay. I think the Raiders should return to Los Angeles. The NFL wouldn't allow that. And the reason is that a return to Los Angeles would trigger a court battle that Mark Davis would not win. Why? Because I was there when he agreed to the writing of the resolution that at the end of the day gave LA to the Chargers. All right. Mark didn't win this vote. I was there. You want me to pull up the video? You could see Mark was seething. He wanted that vote. He wasn't going to be had. So he had Las Vegas, Sean Adelson, literally in his back pocket to phone call. You know? Hey, didn't work. I'm coming to Vegas. All right. Mark wanted to be where the Chargers are. He wanted the Raiders in that spot. And as Dean has told me a bunch of times, he really tried to make it work in San Diego. He didn't like the idea of moving. I think at some point the Chargers will be back there. That's the only way I think you'll get the Raiders back to LA. All right. If San Diego decides to give it another go, I thought that was a great idea to build this combination convention center and stadium downtown, but they didn't think they had the votes to do it. But guess what? Now you can use tax increment financing and you don't have to go to the voters. Ha ha. Yeah. Ha ha. Okay. So maybe San Diego should give another go of it. But whatever they do, it has to be done in conjunction with building more ultra affordable housing. It just can't be done like used to. Goodbye, Brady. Looks like it. Shadow ban. Beg Jameis to come back. Yeah. Jameis Winston coming back to Tampa, I think would produce another Super Bowl. I really do. John says, I think Chargers belong in San Diego. I agree. San Diego just isn't San Diego without the Chargers. There are two things San Diego needs to be San Diego. Well, technically three. One of them is Comic-Con. They cannot see San Diego without Comic-Con. The other is the Chargers. They're gone. And the third, of course, well, the military. Okay, and the fourth are the beaches. Four things. Right? You take those four components, you got San Diego in full. So yeah, the Chargers need to be back there. So anyway, there's my thought. It's 1:11 a.m. And thank you all for doing this with me. It's been some time, and I promise I won't be a stranger. I will, as Arnold Schwarzenegger might say, I'll be back sooner rather than later. Even I'll do this for basketball. I've got to start getting back in the swing of live streaming up here rather than downstairs where I made a mistake there at whatever. Stuff happens, right? But you learn your lessons and then you move on. You learn your lessons and then you move on. And so, Is Tom Brady coming back to LA? No. Is Tom Brady going to Las Vegas? I think so. Be great for sponsors. It'd be interesting experiment, you know? Be interesting something to see how it plays out. Tom Brady in Las Vegas. It just seems right. John Collins says, good night. Good night, sir. And remember, live long and prosper. Hey, and by the way, join our membership club, Zenny 62 membership club. Right now, Dave is our only member there. He needs some company. $2.96. Yeah, it doesn't go up. $2.96 a month at the low end. I'm going to add on more goodies if you join now, or even if you don't, but as incentive, right? Tomorrow, really today, at 4 o'clock Pacific, the creator of the Arrowverse, Mark Guggenheim, will be our guest. I am really excited. 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, right here, Zenny62 YouTube. Mark Guggenheim, the creator of the Arrowverse. We'll talk about the end of the Arrowverse, comic book projects he's working on, that James Gunn guy running DC all of a sudden, comics, what he thinks about that, and other subjects. Join us later today. We'll see you. That is this broadcast.